my name is Sanvi. Today we're going to be speaking with Mrs. Suneri Shah. Mrs. Shah graduated from Rutgers University with a doctorate in pharmacy. After getting her degree, she worked at companies such as A&P and Indian Health Service as a pharmacy extern. She was also assistant faculty and course coordinator at the Ernest Mario School of Pharmacy at Rutgers University for 2 years. In 2015, Mrs. Shah started working at Merck as a postdoctoral fellow in late-stage clinical development. After having that role for 2 years, she assumed the role of senior clinical research scientist for 3 years. Since 2021, she has been the associate principal scientist, now completing over 7 years at the company. So, Mrs. Shah, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Suneri.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for joining us and sharing your advice. So, let's get started. First of all, did you already know in high school that you wanted to pursue healthcare?
I had a general idea. I knew that I was always interested in the science field. Healthcare was particularly appealing to me because it was many types of sciences combined, like physiology, biology, chemistry, that I enjoyed all of those in high school. And then you have the unique aspect of getting to apply that and reach out to other people. So healthcare always had a draw for me. I wouldn't say I knew exactly what I wanted to do in healthcare in high school, but I knew that that was like the field that I was going for.
Got it. And did you do any extracurriculars in high school that led you led you to
Um,
explore that interest?
Honestly, I mean, I did a bunch of honor societies and things involved in science, but I wouldn't say I did science-based or healthcare-based extracurriculars. I did a lot of sports and international club and other extracurriculars, but not particularly focused in healthcare. No.
Got it. So then in undergrad, what made you choose pharmacy?
So actually, I did a 6-year program so it's a straight program from high school.
Okay.
So basically, pharmacy is usually 4 years of undergrad and then 4 years after you take your PCATs or get into graduate school. And I had an idea that I wanted to do pharmacy mainly. Again, it was, to be honest, it was in high school, it was because it was like a stable career path. I had a family that was, my mom was a pharmacist, my grandpa was a pharmacist, so I had a draw there. But I think I can't say I really chose pharmacy until I got to college and I knew the sector of pharmacy that I wanted to be in. That's when I finally felt like it was my decision. But yeah, I did have an idea, obviously, in high school because I did the straight program that went straight in to college.
Okay, so in that 6-year program, you were still able to decide, like make some decisions further along.
Yeah, so technically what ends up happening with the 6 years, that the first 4 years that you normally do in undergrad are combined into 2 years. So the first 2 years of school at Rutgers, I got the general science courses and math courses and things that I could apply to other scientific degrees. So after those 2 years, if I wanted to, change my career, I could always drop out of the program and I would have a lot of the credits that I could use towards another science degree. And then if I wanted to pursue it and keep going through pharmacy, then I would continue in the program.
Okay.
But unlike other schools where you do 4 years of undergrad and then have to take something called like the PCATs or like it's almost like the MCAT, but for pharmacy, you don't have to do that in a straight 6 years. That was a big draw for me to go to Rutgers in general.
So do you think that's like one of the benefits of doing 6-year program versus like the split 4 and 4 years?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely advocate for the 6 year one. It's that like less of a stress of having to take another test just to get into pharmacy school when you've done 4 years of undergrad and you really wanted to go into pharmacy and then that one test didn't go well. I mean, it's stressful and it's another kind of like a speed bump to get there. And then another thing is that you save 2 years of your life almost. So, and now there are residencies and fellowships after pharmacy. So it becomes a lot of schooling. Those 2 years are really nice to get back.
Yeah, I'm sure. So what made you choose Rutgers to pursue your 6-year program and what were your other options?
So Rutgers is one of a couple of programs that offer 6-year programs. Another option was USP has a 6-year program. And I think there's a couple other schools that have 6-year programs. But for me, it was really just between Rutgers and I liked UNC Chapel Hill as a school, but they didn't have the 6-year program and I would have to take the PCATs after undergrad. So for me, given that Rutgers was in-state, it was a well-known school for pharmacy. It's a good pharmacy school. It's a 6-year program. I had a lot of other friends and I guess mentors that have gone through Rutgers Pharmacy, and it turned out well. And then also Rutgers for pharmacy, an important thing or a useful thing is that if your school is in a state that has industry, it gives you a lot of outlets to pursue like internships and fellowships at pharmaceutical companies and things during your experiential career path for like the last year of your rotations, and then even in summers. So Rutgers is great for that because New Jersey has so many pharmaceutical industries around.
Mhm.
And I think that's a big part of why I actually was able to go into the industry field afterwards. So that was my main pull for Rutgers, and why I chose that program.
So did you like your experience there?
I loved it. I know everyone has mixed feelings about college and Rutgers, but I think that Rutgers was like super diverse. The pharmacy school itself is a small school within a big school, so
Mhm.
you get the added benefit of having like a ton of activities and diversity and sport culture and everything you kind of want out of a college with the big school, and then you have a small community in terms of pharmacy with a teaching staff, teaching hospitals. I love Rutgers.
Mhm.
I can't advocate it enough for pharmacy, and having people that are not only in pharmacy kind of give you like a really good balance in terms of social life, friends, just again diversity. So
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. You were talking about getting introduced to internships. Did you do any during your 6-year program?
yep. So after my it was my second year of undergrad, I did a regulatory affairs internship in the summer at a
Mhm.
generic company. At that point, I was pretty young and it wasn't super pharmacy related. It was just getting an idea of like industry terminology.
Mhm.
And then in my later on in my rotations, I knew that I wanted to pursue industry. So I took a couple of rotations in industrial companies.
Mhm.
And then for the majority of my work experience during college, I worked at Rite Aid in retail as an intern. And I think that's really helpful in terms of anyone kind of in pharmacy school. Retail pharmacy kind of solidifies all of like your drug knowledge. So even if I wasn't going to pursue it after, I think it was a good thing to have under your belt.
Got it. And then please describe your previous role in the school of pharmacy at Rutgers after graduating. I remember you saying that you were part of the assistant faculty. So,
Yep. So I did the 2 year postdoc fellowship. So basically, after I graduated 6 years from pharmacy school, I did a 2 year fellowship with Merck under the Rutgers Fellowship Program. And
mm,
so with that program, I was afforded the opportunity to be able to teach if I qualified. So I would interview for the teaching role. And then after I did 1 year of teaching the pharmacy communications course, I wanted to become the course coordinator because I felt that teaching was something rewarding for
mm,
me. So during my fellowship, basically throughout my fellowship, I did the coordinator role for the pharmacy communications course.
got it. And was that hard to juggle doing both jobs at once?
Luckily, so like a fellowship is a unique role where half, not half, but some of your time is devoted to the Rutgers Fellowship development, whereas some of it's devoted to the company that you're partnered with. So I had a very flexible preceptor, and I would say a lot of companies and most preceptors are pretty flexible to
Mhm.
allow you to take on those opportunities at Rutgers. So, for example, aside from teaching, I know a bunch of other fellows who pursued an MBA that was
Mhm.
um, covered basically by the fellowship program during the fellowship.
Okay.
So there are a lot of opportunities in a fellowship after a pharmaceutical degree. And
Mhm.
so for me, I wanted to pursue that like teaching aspect and in academia, and I was able to couple that. And I think it was easy to balance as long as you're clear to communicate with your preceptor like your goals and finish the work that you had to on the rest of the work week.
Mhm. Got it. So you started as a postdoctoral fellow at Merck. How did you achieve the role of associate principal scientist?
So after the fellowship program, after pharmacy school, again, I did a 2 year fellowship. And at the
Mhm.
end of your fellowship program, you basically graduate. And so that means you're no longer employed by Rutgers. Now you have to look for like a full-time job at a pharmaceutical company.
Mhm.
And so then I interviewed for Merck under the same group that I actually did my fellowship in. So I think that made it a little bit easier to bridge that, I guess, experience and the people that I knew on the hiring side.
Mhm.
And then I got hired on there as a senior clinical scientist. And then after a couple of years or just working in that role and gaining some experience, I moved up to the associate level.
Oh, that's great. So,
Mhm.
with that role, what does an average work week look like?
Honestly, it's hard to say. I think one of the things I liked about the job so much is that every day is kind of different. The main bulk of the job is handling global clinical trials, at least in my role. It's late stage trials. So you're kind of doing medical monitoring and dealing with the issues that come up across global clinical studies as they come.
Mhm.
So some weeks you have issues with patients, and other weeks you're planning for a database lock or a clinical study report. And so I don't think there's an average work week, like a typical work week. But it's a lot of just analysis, communication, problem solving. I would say those three things involved
Yeah, sounds
usually.
interesting. What kinds of clinical trials do you work on?
I did a late stage development fellowship. So basically, that's phase 2 to phase 4 of
Mhm.
clinical trials. So almost when it goes back into the market. So if they pass the phase 4 clinical trials or phase 3 clinical trials, you're going to go into the market and the drug will get marketed
Mhm.
and go out to the public. So I work on anything in that space, and my therapeutic area is diabetes, endocrinology, and metabolic diseases.
Got it. And how did you decide on those aspects of drugs?
So the therapeutic area that I didn't necessarily decide on, I decided more the type of fellowship. So
Mhm.
within industry, there are multiple areas where pharmacists can have a role. I chose clinical research because I always liked the clinical aspect of pharmacy. I just didn't think that I fit in or wanted to pursue a residency or retail pharmacy.
Mhm.
So clinical research was a good place for me to couple clinical as well as industry.
Mhm.
And in terms of a type of fellowship beyond clinical, I always wanted to do late stage because it's kind of like that last stage before it gets to patients.
Mhm.
I thought that was rewarding, knowing that you're working on a trial that can help people soon.
Mhm.
Whereas early stage development, a lot of drugs fail, or it's more of like pharmacokinetics and dynamics. So I
Mhm.
chose because of that. And then therapeutic area, I kind of just, every company has different like therapeutic areas that they have their portfolio or pipeline in. And
Mhm.
for Merck, this was the fellowship that fit in with this like therapeutic area, but that can always be changed. It's
Mhm.
more like the core skills that you get in the role that are important.
Mhm. So would you say that one of your favorite aspects of the job is just reaching to patients and getting that last step?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite aspects is the global reach. It's
Mhm.
not that like sometimes I would say I miss the direct patient contact that you get in retail, but in industry, you're doing things that at like a much bigger scale.
Mhm.
And then I also love that again, like every week is different. It's not a monotonous job. I feel that like time passes quickly because you're interested or busy. And
Mhm.
so I can say that there's a normal week, and that's actually something that I like.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense. So how do you balance your role with your hobbies, such as traveling and having a family?
I think that's part of the draw of industrial pharmacy in general. It's very flexible. I work from home majority of the days in the week. Um, we have like a lot of time off, and I think in terms of work life balance, it's nice. I think you get what you want out of like the healthcare role without like being on your feet for 12 hours in retail. And I mean, each aspect, each field has its rewards, right? Like retail and hospital, you get to work directly with the patient. So
Mhm.
sometimes I miss that. But in terms of industrial pharmacy, I do think the work life balance is really good. And it gives you the ability to juggle
Mhm.
both hobbies and work.
That's great. Yeah. Looking back, would you have done anything differently on your journey?
I think I landed where I wanted to, so it's hard to say yes, but I think going back maybe would have been a good idea to just look into or get more experience in different sectors of industry. Not that I would have chosen differently for clinical research, but I think it helps you understand the big picture of the company when you have experience in regulatory affairs and medical affairs and all the other departments.
Mhm.
So that maybe have been something that like I would have taken more rotations or something in.
Got it. So just like expanding like
Yeah,
education.
expanding even if like I knew that I wanted to do research, it would be good to just explore other areas.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then the last thing, what are three pieces of advice you would give to high school students looking to enter the healthcare field or study pharmacy specifically?
One thing I would say is that, a pharmacy degree is just a degree. It's not the career. And so to think about going to pharmacy school is one thing, but then where do you want to see yourself fit in after you get that degree? Or
Mhm,
like once you get a PharmD, what are your career options? You can do industry, retail, residency, teaching. And so I think when you are in high school, you like say, I want to do pharmacy, but it's also nice in the beginning to think about your end game, because then when you build your experience towards graduating, you're really building towards something that you definitely want and exploring
mhm,
all the paths and options you have for a career. Because at the end of the day, I mean, you graduate college, but the rest of your life is that career.
mhm,
So just keep that in focus. And then I guess the second piece of advice is also the opposite of that, almost to stay open minded.
mhm,
Like if you know you want to do industry, still take a rotation in like the hospital, or take an internship in retail,
mhm,
because sometimes it'll surprise you where you land.
mhm,
And then third piece, I guess my last piece of advice isn't really pharmacy related, but college related. It's to stay super balanced. I think Rutgers helped with that because it was again a bigger school and a smaller school. And then I had done a professional fraternity, which had a social aspect to it, which was nice. I did a dance team that has a social aspect to it that wasn't related to pharmacy school, right?
mhm,
So keeping that balance where it's not just school and you're getting the communication skills and other activities under your belt that make that time enjoyable, and
mhm,
you just grow as a person. I
mhm.
think that's really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much. Your advice and your progression throughout Merck was really interesting. Do you have any other thoughts to share?
No, that's it. I mean, enjoy your time in high school. It's probably the most fun you'll ever have. And no matter what, I guess if you ever do have to change your career when you get to college, you feel like it's not the right fit. It's never too late.
Mhm.
You have the whole future ahead of you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.